How can pavement be political?
Right.
Welcome back to Landline Now. To say there's been a fire hose of news coming out of Washington, D.C. in recent weeks would be an understatement, and mixed in with the rest have been a number of trucking-related headlines. We're going to touch on some of those now with the help of Jami Jones and Tyson Fisher of Landline Magazine. Jami, Tyson, good to see you.
Hey, good to be here.
Thanks for having me.
So, we've got a lot to cover here. We're going to start with the God Truckers Act. We've talked about this before, but I think it's worth revisiting and talking more about. This is the bill that would give company drivers the right to earn overtime pay. I'm glad you're here, Jami, because I think you, maybe better than anyone, can help us put this into perspective a little bit, because the bill itself, as I said, would benefit company drivers.
Correct.
Ensuring they get paid for all the time that they put in. But the impact of this would be pretty widespread.
It really would. And the first time that this was introduced in the last Congress, the reception was really warm. People were appreciative of how that is. And the ATA spin cycle has been in full gear for quite a while. So successfully have muddied the waters a bit. But in reality, this is not a bill that mandates that company drivers get paid hourly. There can still be those percentage loads. There can still be all these other things in with it, but it looks at the total of the day and compares it to how many hours. And so anything over 40, it takes the total of the day, and that's got to turn that last 20 into, if you work 60, time and a half. So there's a lot of confusion that I fully expected this time, because like I said, the big motor carriers do not want this.
Yeah.
And it's for obvious reasons.
Right.
I mean, they're beholden to shareholders, and they'll poor mouth you all day long if their profits are down 10%, but I promise you they're still making money hand over fist.
Sure.
So don't buy into that rhetoric. And for owner-operators who are out there and wondering, well, how is this going to affect me? Who undercuts you worse than anybody on rates? These big fleets leverage these contracts with shippers and receivers. They can undercut you because they pay company drivers so poorly. They keep their equipment costs lower for various reasons. They basically, spec out simple trucks. There's not a lot to them.
Yeah.
There's just a lot of ways that they can keep their costs down that owner-operators can't. And one of those is lower driver pay for company drivers. So this, when you raise up some, the rest will follow.
The rising tide, lifting all ships thing.
Yes, exactly. And that's really what we need to stay focused on this. I know the OIDA Foundation has done white papers and myth-busting papers and all these other things, and we'll be distributing those on the regular as this goes on because, one thing that we've learned, ATA is not going to let up on this issue, so it's real important for company drivers and owner-operators alike to understand that this can benefit everyone. Maybe not the fleets as much. They might have to poor mouth their shareholders for once.
Yeah, but this just speaks to the ongoing issue that OIDA and other people keep making, in that you are pushing good drivers out of the industry because you're treating them poorly.
Right.
So if you're talking about company drivers and you're not paying them for all their time, that speaks to the entire industry as a whole. It also, you talked about shippers and receivers. They would, you would think, be more pressed to be more efficient with people's time if they knew that everybody was if the overtime issue was there as well.
Can you imagine the pressure from fleets alone to get their trucks,
get
them in there, loaded and unloaded?
Yeah.
Oh, my word.
Yes, this is one of these things that, again, rising tide, lifting all ships. And we've seen President Trump talk about overtime pay and not taxing overtime pay. So it's on his radar as well. It's on the radar of people that are making these decisions. So we'll see how it all goes, but at least it's it's out there. The awareness is there.
Yeah, and it's really important that this pro-trucker legislation is being introduced again in this Congress because we have opportunities coming up that we could really push these across the line.
Speaking of opportunities and pushing things across the line here, we spoke with U.S. Congressman Mike Bost earlier in the show about this newly reintroduced truck parking bill. Tyson, he's more optimistic than ever about this thing getting passed, and there are some tailwinds, I think, behind him and this issue.
Yeah, no, he absolutely should be optimistic. I mean, yeah, it's worth pointing out, like, this is his fourth bite at the apple of this whole thing.
Yep.
And so some people might find that to be discouraging, like how many times. But the thing is, I was looking at the progress of the Truck Parking Safety Improvement Act, and each time it's reintroduced, it gets more and more momentum. I think the last time it got 53 co-sponsors, 27 Democrats, 26 Republicans. I mean, this is as bipartisan as it's going to get. And why wouldn't it be? We're talking about an issue that nobody disagrees with.
How can pavement be political?
Right.
Yeah.
But whether it's the public sector or the private sector, everyone agrees that truck parking is a problem. That's not debatable. If you're someone who's worried about, government spending, no extra spending. This just allocates money that already exists and just gives it specifically to truck parking expansion projects. I mean, it's kind of a no-brainer. And then, considering, Mike Boss, being a Republican, they have control of pretty much the government right now. And so, you have that momentum on their side. Also, just as a lot of the conditions are kind of ripe for this one to actually get out the door and then signed by the president. So I I do share that optimism.
Yeah, and there's obviously the traditional avenue of, passing the bill, getting it signed into law by the president. He also did talk about the possibility of getting this into the highway bill, which is another avenue that is there as well. You look at this, it's so hard to kind of put your mind around these things when you're talking about dollar figures and, what the money would go toward and what it would do. In this case, I'm curious because obviously this is your, bread and butter here, Tyson, but $755 million, it's a lot of money. How much good would that do, I guess, over that, I think, 3-year period, right?
Sure. I mean, it depends how they spend the money. But, I mean, look, it'll probably put a dent into the problem. It's not going to solve the problem, that's for sure.
For sure, yeah.
But it is a start. It's absolutely a start. And it would kind of signal to everyone that, the government is serious about this and we kind of get that ball rolling. And I think that's the important part is that there is some significant investment in truck parking at the federal level. And then the other thing about that is that there's a lot of states that are actually ready to start pouring concrete. They just don't have the money. And they have the money available through grants, but those grants aren't specific to truck parking. It fights for other projects that are more important to the general public, like bridges and roads and stuff like that. So when you have, a pool of money specifically for truck parking, I know there's a lot of states that are locked in, ready to go to implement their projects. And so, yeah, you get that money out there for them, it will be used.
Fightingfortruckers.com is the website to go to encourage your lawmaker to sign on not just to the Truck Parking Safety Improvement Act, but also the Got Truckers Act and any other legislation that is out there that would benefit you and your colleagues out on the road. I don't think, actually, truck parking, I'm pretty sure, didn't come up during OOID Executive Vice President Louis Pugh's testimony before the Senate Surface Transportation, Freight, Pipelines, and Safety Subcommittee. That's a mouthful. It was dedicated, however, to another important topic, freight fraud, cargo theft. Jami, nice to see Congress putting a spotlight on this issue as well.
Well, freight fraud, and this is not a surprise to anybody who has a cell phone. Fraud in general is just up.
Rampant.
Right.
I mean, it's every day you wake up to what are the text messages from Microsoft telling me somebody, it's just every day. And brokers, it seems that the scammers, the hackers, everybody, this is a full-on business model now. And so it was really nice to see that this was being put out in front of a congressional hearing. And Louis, of course, with the trucker perspective, did such a fantastic job of highlighting the realities. And it's only going to continue to get worse because it's gotten more attractive as of late with all of the increased prices in groceries, clothes, everything else. So instead of stealing cargo and maybe repurposing it somewhere else or something, I mean, we're going more from theft to consumer, criminal to consumer.
Right,
so
right.
You're going to see more of this stuff showing up on the corners at a gas station.
Well, yeah, and then you got AI, which is going to make it easier and quicker for anyone to do this, for sure.
Well, I mean, you would get the Nigerian prince email, that was clearly.
Yeah, I'm still waiting on my money.
Clearly broken English. Well, now they have the opportunity to run that through AI and get that cleaned up, and even talk the trucker lingo.
I was going to say tailor it
to, so it's getting tougher and tougher, and you have to really be methodical when you're going through this, because they are getting smarter. They're picking up more loads, stealing more loads. So it's a big problem, but it is on the mind at Congress, and hopefully we can keep that going with Senator Fisher's bill.
Yeah, and there was a CEO of a transportation company, Adam Blanchard, who had been victimized by this kind of scheme. That was
Poor guy.
Yeah, it was a powerful testimony, though, and he essentially said, hey, we're not getting any help here. We need help. And I think that really spoke, hopefully, to the people there in Congress. But yeah, they're working on a couple things. The broker transparency issue is kind of folded into this as well.
Right. There's many, many layers to this one, yes.
So many layers, and we'll keep an eye on that. But another issue you should continue keeping pressure on lawmakers to do something about, because we need all the help we can get for sure. We don't have a whole lot of time, Tyson. I wanted to make sure we hit on an important or interesting topic as well, right to repair laws. You recently covered some legal wrangling, I guess, in Massachusetts about this issue. And this one is really a win for people who want to fix their own stuff.
Yeah, so right to repair laws, basically, so what that means is that everyone has access to the necessary data or information in the vehicle that's necessary to make diagnostics and repairs to a vehicle. So as vehicles become more computer centric, it's more difficult to make these repairs. You got to get into the computer systems. Before right to repair laws, the argument is that independent repair services didn't have the same access to the vehicle's computer as franchise dealerships, so that was a problem. Right to repair laws gives everyone that same access. So in November 2020, Massachusetts voters decided to strengthen their right to repair laws to include modern day technology. The vehicle manufacturers did not like that because they don't think the technology exists to allow that to happen the way that they want it. So they filed a lawsuit against it. So because of that lawsuit, that 2020 law has pretty much been in limbo. The state hasn't been able to enforce it. So fast forward, more than 4 years later, the case finally got resolved. And the long story short is the court basically gave the state the green light to move forward with their right to repair law. Now, why this is interesting is because Massachusetts was the very first state to pass a right to repair law back in 2012. And as a result of that, the manufacturers kind of realized they can't manufacture vehicles specifically for Massachusetts. So they did signed a memorandum of understanding. It's we're just going to apply this everywhere. Yeah. So the question is, will this strengthened new right to repair law in Massachusetts compel the manufacturers to roll that out nationwide as well? Thing is, I think we might not know that for a while, because they will likely appeal this decision to kick this can further down the road.
Get caught up in the court system for a while here. There is a federal. You don't say. There is a federal push for this too, right? As well.
Yeah. So real quick, the manufacturers, as an alternative, they have a piece of proposed legislation to have a nationwide framework for right to repair. It's not as strict and stringent as Massachusetts law, but they believe it checkmarks all of the concerns that consumers and independent repair services have. No congressperson has picked up on that yet, but that's kind of a brand new, development in this whole thing.
Giving the power back to the people. We'll see how that one goes. Tyson, Jami, we shall leave it there, but we'll talk to you again soon. We appreciate it.
Oh, you're welcome.